got this hollow form that I've done a while back, which was cherry, and I did quite a nice job hollowing it out, but it's cracked terribly. So I've filled some of the cracks and I'm still not happy with it, so I've splodged some goldy coloured paint on, and I'm now going to try and do a string pull. Right, so I've put a couple of coats of ebonising lacquer on it, and it's got a reasonable finish, but it's a bit blobby because it's been filled, and it's also had a previous paint on it that I should have probably rubbed back, which is fine. Most of this is going to have some colour on it. So what I'm going to do first, before I try and do any of the string pull, is I'm just going to cut a bit of pretend natural sponge from Aldi, and I'm going to splodge on some of the Joe Sonia colours as a sort of base, lightly put on, in order to sort of break up the texture. So I'm just going to mix a bit of this with some of the Joe Sonia flow medium, which thins it without actually diluting the colour. Right, so the green first. A little bit goes a heck of a long way. So I'm just going to put a bit of green on first, and a bit of flow medium. I'm going to splodge some green on at the bottom. So that's the green, and I've still got about 70% left of what I mixed up, so it really does go a long way. Shimmering blue. I should do a smaller amount of this because clearly I'm going to waste it otherwise. Oh, bit of blue. Right, I'm going to go for a bit of red, I think, first. Just a little tiny bit of red. I'm not bothering to clean the sponges because I want the colours to sort of blend a little bit anyway. And then while the colours are still, I've still got a bit left, I'm just going to do a little bit of bubble wrap dotting. The old Amazon packaging comes in for a lot of good use. Then gold. Shimmering gold. Just a little tiny bit of that. So because I've already got some colour on here, I'm not sure exactly how the paints are going to take if I use the fully interference one, so I thought I might try the chestnut ones because they've got more of a body of colour to them. Let's start off with the red anyway. Right, let's get a bit of shaking, rattle and roll in. Right, let's put a bit of this in. I think I'll mix it with a bit of flow medium, make it go a bit further. I don't know how much of this is going to be used. A few drops of that. That's a nice bright colour. Stick this string in. Get the string well soaked. Sort of open, so this is the bottom. I've got to pull it that way. So I've got to drape it on from the top. And pull it off from the bottom. And make sure this is on. See what happens. Well, not entirely successful. Don't think there was enough paint on it. Right, goopy enough last time. Right, let's turn it around a bit. Okay, it's gone on a bit better this time. Clearly you need to control it as you pull it in order to be able to keep it in contact. Right, I've just put some Joe Sonia red on, but forgot to put the camera on. So I'm mixing the same string with some chestnut purple this time. I think the string needs to soak up more paint basically. And I've been doing to get a good pull. I'll try this then in the gap in between. Okay, that's quite interesting. got some gold pre-mixed paint from a company called the Stamp Paint from the English Stamp Company. I've had it for years, inherited it from my dad, got no idea what it is. I think it's water based, giving it a good stir. I'm going to stick my string in. The problem's been that to get it to have a good pull, you need to get quite a bit of paint on it. Not too much, otherwise it'll be a bit yucky. Right, I'll do that down the middle of the purple, I think. Lord knows what's going to happen to this. It could be a complete, oh, it's going to be a complete disaster. I can see this. Too thick. Right, I got a lot of it off, but I'm just going to try create a bit of texture with a brass brush. Right, I'm going to try adding some layers of Inca Gold paint now. Just blobbed on my sponge, just to sort of add some layers to the partially destroyed string pull that was beneath, which I didn't really like. Stuart Farini, eat your heart out, mate. So this one's another Inca Gold, and this one is orange. And then finally a bit of Inca Gold, cobalt blue, but I'm just going to let this dry for a second first. Right, this is the cobalt blue, filling in some of the gaps. And a few highlights of the red. Just a few little extra bits. Alright, going to do a little bit of gold leafing. So I've got some size here. Just going to put some on in random places. Not done this before, so it's always a first.
At this point I decided that the gold leaf looked far too leery, so whilst the sides were still a bit damp, I sprinkled some copper dust on and brushed that across just to sort of tone down some of the gold leaf. And then just to turn it down even further, a few more dabs of the Inca Gold copper paint. And then on the basis that less is always more, or is it that way around, I thought I'd put some more of the cobalt blue Inca Gold on just to rev it up a bit more. At this point things went a bit wrong because far too much of the cobalt blue ended up on the sponge and then on the workpiece, and then I got in a right mess and thought, oh, what am I going to do now? Oh no, I'll rub it off, rub it in. Well, that looked horrible, so it became a rescue job then. So with all those layers of colour on, I thought the best way was to rub some of it back as the paint was still fairly soft and expose some of the layers of colour below, which started to begin to work out a bit. At this point I thought I'd spin the lathe up and get a bit of friction going in order to pull some of that paint surface off. So the old tennis ball trick, in order to steady the end, as I didn't want it coming off, tennis ball in the mouth of the hollow form, supported in place with the tailstock. I didn't bother to put a drive on this time round, didn't seem to be needed.
Right, let's put a bit of wood embellishment back into it on the outside so you can actually see it's wood. Careful not to go through it.
I was beginning to run out of paint supplies, so at this point I thought I'd just move on to some lacquering. So some chestnut acrylic satin lacquer, multiple layers of it, sanded back between different layers with wet and dry to bring up the sheen.
Listening to a bit of Creedence, getting on down. So I'm going to do some burnishing cream now. Yeah, I had to stop that because it probably meant copyright if this goes on YouTube. Some burnishing cream, and I've had several coats of lacquer on this. I don't know whether I like it or whether I hate it, but several coats of satin lacquer, which needs, you know, sanding back. So I did 400 and 800 on it, and then I washed it back. I'm just going to cut this again with the buffing cream, which is not very creamy. So I might just swap buffing creams and see if the other one's got a bit more warmth to it. So hold on. Right, so this is the chestnut one. The other one was a lever-on one. I think that's probably been lurking for a while, so this one's definitely got more body to it, more cutting compound, which is what it really needs. otherwise the acrylic satin lacquer can look much duller than you really want it to. Alright, spin that up a bit. I was going to do another string pull, but I've decided against it. I'll just start off with a bit of Hampshire sheen as it's on the lathe. Right, so I've now got to turn off the bottom. This is not very thick. This was one that was hollowed through the bottom first, so it's got quite a narrow neck. So I've got the Simon Hope hollow form bottom tool, which allows you to slide a hollow form on and grip at the tailstock. Now I've just taken off the little bottom piece which comes with it, which is like one of his sanding discs, because it's just a bit too big for the hole for the neck. So I've just got to devise something to go around this end to avoid boring a little hole in the bottom. So let me find something. Right, so I've got a dust cap of some description, a bit of tape just to hold it in place, and then I've got a little tiny bit of scrap, it's like wetsuit material, which I've been rationing out. Just put a little bit of that right over the very end, so that there's a little bit of a slip surface there, so that the plastic of that cap doesn't actually melt. Fitting there. Now I don't want this to ruin the black on the inside, so I'm just going to put something around that as well. Just a bit of paper, I think. Right. Slide that in a bit. Line that in. I think that'd be okay for very light cuts. Yeah. It's about 1000 RPM, 3/8 spindle gouge, freshly sharpened. Make sure it's slightly concave. Yep. Quite well cracked though still. Just going with a 1/4 inch spindle gouge that's been ground to quite a point, and the heel has been quite heavily ground out. I think that's about as small as I dare go. It's about 1 or 2 mil. Right, the rest will have to be sanded and nipped off by hand.
Just using the Simon Hope 50mm sanding arbor kit with all the different arbors and the different grits. Great stuff, makes it very easy to do tricky sanding.
Right, I'm just going to put some cellulose sanding sealer on the bottom with the dust there to try and get the dust to sort of go in the cracks. Decided to put some very thin CA in just to try and stabilise the cracks. I've got the white buffing wheel on. Now the Canupa buffing wheel, don't put too much on otherwise it clags up.
So there we have the finished item. It's actually worked out quite nice. Lots of different layers of colour, splodged, splattered, rubbed and buffed. Like it or hate it? Don't know. Probably art, and that's why it's in the eye of the beholder.